Senator Tammy Duckworth just delivered a takedown of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth that was so thorough, so personal, and so grounded in her own combat experience that it left him with nowhere to hide. She listed his failures. A billion-dollar mission against the Houthis, who don't have a navy, failed to reopen the Red Sea.
The $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece.
2 F-18 Hornets lost, $200 million. 7 Reaper drones, another $200 million. He sent classified information over Signal to impress his wife. She has no clearance. He created a hostile command environment. No one wants to work with him.
You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles.
Then she went further. She accused him of repurposing the military for domestic political gain, using troops as police, diverting resources from real threats. She told him, "If you want to be the DHS secretary, apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence." Let's watch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In response to my colleague from Oklahoma, I believe the Secretary of Defense has just responded last week and admitted that the $1 billion mission that he led against the Houthis, who do not have a navy, has not restored the transit of U.S. flag commercial vessels through the Red Sea, and in fact has resulted in the loss of 2 F-18 Hornets to the tune of $60 million apiece, as well as, I believe the last count was 7 Reaper drones to the tune of another $200 million. You are blowing through money like my fellow cadets and I did in our first Liberty after basic camp. Luckily, I didn't end up with a questionable tattoo. Your failures, Mr. Secretary, since you've taken office has been staggering. You sent classified operational information over Signal to chest thump in front of your wife, who, by the way, has no security clearance, risking service member lives in the process. You blew the $1 billion fight against the Houthis, whom, again, as my colleague says, has no navy, and yet you lost all of those aircraft. You've created such a hostile command environment that no one wants to serve as your chief of staff or work with you in other senior DoD leadership roles. But what we should all be talking about, more than all of this, is that you have an unjustified, un-American misuse of the military in American cities, pulling resources and attention away from core missions to the detriment of the country, the warfighters, and yes, the war fighting that you claim to love. I don't know if this is because you are too inexperienced and incompetent to understand the real threats facing our country, or if it's because you are just an unqualified yes man who can't tell the president how to keep Americans safe. You are focusing on renaming bases for Confederate generals. You said just now to Senator King that to a man and to a woman, we would rather be associated with the old Confederate names. Well, I am one of those women. I served at Fort Rucker, Alabama, a base that was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States of America, led troops who killed Americans. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient who, in his citation for the Medal of Honor, includes that he saved 29 American lives, to include hovering backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker where a wounded American was laying and saved that person, including after being taken fire himself. I know a little something about what it takes to fly a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. That was heroic. I'd rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. I don't know whether you are inexperienced or too incompetent, but I wonder when you will actually focus on our nation's warfighting mission. We know that California is just a deliberate, systematic, political, and dangerous campaign led by you. We should not be using our military to play cops against Americans. General Kane, as chairman, a key part of your job is to coordinate military planning across the joint force. Is the department currently incorporating into any military plans expanding the use of the reserve forces to include the National Guard or active duty troops to support domestic law enforcement, including in other locations in the United States?
Senator, you know, we carefully.
No, General.
Well, it's not really a yes or no question, Madam Senator. We plan all kinds of different things.
I think it is a yes or no question.
I'm not aware of anything, but the reason why I'm answering is the tags may be looking at something that I'm not aware of.
What are you doing at your level? You're not aware of that happening at your level? Because we know that on his first day, President Trump directed U.S. Northern Command to revise its unified command plan to add new planning requirements to combat, and I quote, criminal activities. A series of follow-up executive orders continue to redirect DOD priorities to supporting domestic law enforcement, including one in April that tells DOD, and I quote, use national security assets for law and order. In other words, do law enforcement's job. I'd like to enter these executive orders into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Is there objection? Without objection, so ordered.
Secretary Hegseth, you say you are focused on warfighting and warriors. These are your words. Yet you are diverting untold DOD resources and attention to a fundamentally non-military mission of domestic policing. Across the country, we have qualified police officers who are trained for that mission. They know those streets better than the Marines you deploy to Los Angeles, who normally focus on the Indo-Pacific. And you recently approved 700 more troops in 3 other states to do admin and logistics works for ICE. You say all of this is valuable training, but I would much rather have our troops do tough, realistic training relevant to high-end combat. Instead of typing in spreadsheets for ICE, they should be conducting live fire maneuver exercises. Instead of patrolling American neighborhoods and standing in front of federal buildings, they should be rehearsing call for fire missions. We have local police who can stand in front of those federal buildings. And the list of distractions goes on. You are encouraging the DOD workforce to go work for DHS in increasing numbers. You're pulling the military away from facing foreign enemies who literally say things like death to America. And you're putting troops with weapons aimed at Americans. Mr. Secretary, let the military get back to its real job. Stop forcing them to do DHSs. And if you want to be DHS Secretary, maybe you can apply for that job when you're fired from this one due to your incompetence.
Senator Tammy Duckworth just delivered a takedown of Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth that was so thorough, so personal, and so grounded in her own combat experience that it left him with nowhere to hide. She did not rely on rhetoric. She relied on facts. She listed his failures one by one, and she did not let him off the hook. She came to this hearing with a clear mission: to expose the incompetence, the recklessness, and the constitutional dangers posed by the man running the Pentagon. And she succeeded. Duckworth began with the Houthi mission. Hegseth admitted that a $1 billion mission against the Houthis, an adversary that does not even have a navy, failed to restore commercial shipping through the Red Sea. In the process, the U.S. lost 2 F-18 Hornets, worth $200 million, and 7 Reaper drones, worth another $200 million. That is $400 million in lost aircraft. The mission failed. The money was wasted. The aircraft were destroyed. Hegseth had no answer. The Houthis are not a naval power. They do not have a fleet. They do not have an air force. They are a guerrilla force with limited capabilities. And yet, the United States spent $1 billion and lost hundreds of millions in equipment, and the mission did not achieve its primary objective. Commercial shipping did not return. The Red Sea remained contested. Duckworth called it what it is, a failure. She did not sugarcoat it. She did not qualify it. She said the failures have been staggering. Then Duckworth turned to the security breach. Hegseth sent classified operational information over Signal. He did it to impress his wife. She has no security clearance. He risked service member lives for vanity. Duckworth called it what it is: reckless endangerment. She did not mince words. Signal is not a secure platform for classified information. The Pentagon has protocols for handling sensitive operational data. Hegseth ignored them. He put troops at risk. He put missions at risk. He put national security at risk. And he did it to show off. That is not leadership. That is negligence. That is a fireable offense. But Hegseth is still in his job. Duckworth made sure everyone knew that. Then Duckworth turned to the command environment. Hegseth has created such a hostile environment that no one wants to serve as his chief of staff. No one wants to work with him. Senior DOD leadership is fleeing. That is not leadership. That is a disaster. The Pentagon is the largest and most complex organization in the world. It requires stability. It requires experienced leadership. It requires people who can work together. Hegseth has none of that. He has alienated his own staff. He has driven away experienced leaders. He has created a culture of fear and dysfunction. Duckworth called it out. She said no one wants to serve with him. That is not hyperbole. That is a documented fact. Then Duckworth turned to the bigger issue, the misuse of the military for domestic political gain. Hegseth is repurposing the military to support domestic law enforcement. Troops are being deployed to American cities. They are being used as police. They are being used as ICE agents. They are typing spreadsheets instead of conducting live fire exercises. They are patrolling neighborhoods instead of rehearsing call for fire missions. Duckworth said this is unjustified and un-American. She was right. The Posse Comitatus Act restricts the use of the military for domestic law enforcement. It is a fundamental principle of American governance. The military is supposed to fight foreign enemies. It is not supposed to police American citizens. Hegseth is ignoring that principle. He is using troops as political props. He is diverting resources from real threats. He is weakening national security. The numbers are staggering. $1 billion for a failed mission, $400 million in lost aircraft, 700 troops diverted to ICE. Troops who should be preparing for high-end conflict are doing administrative work for DHS. Troops who should be facing foreign enemies are standing in front of federal buildings. Duckworth said we have local police for that. She said the military should get back to its real job. She asked why troops are not conducting live fire exercises. She asked why they are not rehearsing call for fire missions. She asked why they are patrolling American neighborhoods instead of preparing for combat. She did not get an answer, because there is no good answer. Then Duckworth turned to the base renaming. Hegseth complained that troops preferred the old Confederate names. Duckworth made it personal. She served at Fort Rucker, Alabama. It was named for a traitor who took arms against the United States. It was renamed for Mike Novosel, a Medal of Honor recipient who saved 29 American lives. He hovered backwards in a helicopter towards an enemy bunker to save a wounded American. He was hit by enemy fire himself. Duckworth knows something about flying a helicopter when you've been hit by enemy fire. She is a combat veteran. She is a double amputee. She has lived the consequences of reckless leadership. She said she would rather be associated with Mike Novosel than a failed Confederate traitor. She said Hegseth is either too inexperienced or too incompetent to understand the real threats facing the country. She said he is an unqualified yes man who cannot tell the president how to keep Americans safe. The core of Duckworth's argument is the constitutional danger. The military is not a domestic police force. That is a long-standing American principle. It is being eroded. The administration is deploying troops to American cities. It is using the military for political purposes. It is diverting resources from real threats. Duckworth warned that real military readiness is being sacrificed. Troops are not training for high-end conflict. They are doing ICE paperwork. They are standing in front of federal buildings. They are not prepared to face foreign enemies who literally say, "Death to America." Duckworth said Hegseth is weakening national security, not strengthening it. She said the boundaries between law enforcement, national security, and political power are being blurred. She said Hegseth is responsible, and she said she is watching. Duckworth's voice lands differently because of who she is. She is not just another senator with opinions. She is a combat veteran. She is a helicopter pilot. She is a double amputee who has personally lived the consequences of reckless leadership. When she warns that someone is endangering troops, she speaks from the perspective of someone who has already paid the price. That gives this moment gravity. It gives it authority. It gives it moral clarity. She is not speaking from a theoretical perspective. She is speaking from experience. She has flown helicopters in combat. She has been hit by enemy fire. She has lost her legs. She knows what it takes to lead troops. She knows what it takes to keep them safe. And she knows that Hegseth does not have it. Duckworth did not just criticize Hegseth. She documented his failures. She exposed his incompetence. She warned about the erosion of constitutional principles. And she told him the truth. He is not fit for the job. he should be fired. And if he wants to be the DHS secretary, he can apply for that job when he is fired from this one due to his incompetence. The American people deserve better. They deserve a Secretary of Defense who understands the mission. They deserve a secretary who can keep troops safe. They deserve a secretary who will not use the military as a political prop. They deserve a secretary who will not send classified information over Signal to impress his wife. They deserve a secretary who will not waste $1 billion on a failed mission. They deserve a secretary who will not divert resources from real threats. They deserve a secretary who will not rename bases after Confederate traitors. They deserve a secretary who will not create a hostile command environment. They deserve a secretary who will not put troops in harm's way for vanity. They deserve a secretary who will not weaken national security. Hegseth is none of those things. Duckworth made that clear. The hearing ended without Hegseth offering a meaningful response. He sat there. He listened. He did not defend himself. He could not. The facts were too damning. The failures were too numerous. The evidence was too clear. Duckworth had done her job. She had held him accountable. She had exposed the truth. And she had made it clear that the American people deserve better. The question now is whether anyone in the administration is listening,